Hello, I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
And I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times, sponsored this month by Bud Financial. Check them out at thisisbud.com. Thank you so much, Bud Financial. So, as you can hear, I have a cold or flu or something. I don't know what it is. It's not COVID. I tested, but I sound like a miserable adult in a commercial for NyQuil. You know how they do those before and after person, to show you how you can go from miserable to awesome because of the product? I am definitely in the before category here at the moment. So, with that, please bear with me on this particular episode. But I decided to look up a joke about soup because I'm feeling so stupid. So, here's a joke I found for you all. I've been buying stock in chicken, vegetables, and beef. One day, I hope to be a billionaire. Ah, okay. That's enough of that. Everybody, Natasha, producer Zach, and you all out there, welcome to Shared Accounts with CU Times. Coming up, we're talking with Edward or Ed, whatever you want to call him, Maslaveckas. He is CEO and co-founder at the data intelligence fintech Bud Financial. We had a hell of a chat with him. Really great guy, going into a lot of things about AI, credit unions, and what to expect coming up and what they're working on. It was really, really, really fun. We had a great time. First up, we do have to take a break from this week and check in with Natasha. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Em. How you feeling?
Hey. Crappy,
Don't.
but for a lot of the interview that we just recorded the interview with Ed, a lot of it I
Right.
was muting because I was coughing and
Oh
sneezing
gosh.
and then drinking out of my
Well, you
water
did a good
bottle.
job of that because I didn't hear one cough, so you
Oh, that's
timed it
good.
well.
hmm
Gosh, I'm so sorry that you have to work while you're feeling like
It
this.
happens.
Really bad, but I do want to say I actually thought the joke was funny,
Oh, good.
and it reminded me of brought back a childhood memory of being in the kitchen, and my mom would have one of these big
Oh,
containers of those bouillon square cubes.
oh yeah, yeah.
And I would sneak one and nibble off of it, and I was thinking about how good it is. It's like pure salt, but
It
it's
is
like
pure salt.
those, the top ramen packets.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of
Oh,
course.
yeah, it's like pure sodium, but
Mhm.
I was just thinking back to when I would, like, sneak those as a kid and
That's adorable.
nibble off the corner of one.
You know
Mm.
what my mom used to give us, like, if
Oh,
we were
well,
outside, all day just sweating, we're like
yeah,
4, 5, 6 years old, whatever, and we're starving, in the afternoon, and we come in, "Mom, we're hungry."
yeah.
And she would always I tried to do this with my sons, it didn't work, but she would slice off a piece of raw potato and say, "Here."
Really?
Yeah,
Is that
and
supposed to cool you down or something, or how does that work?
supposed to eat it, like, "Here,
Oh.
eat this, shut up."
Okay.
It
I
didn't
almost thought
work.
you were gonna say she would give you hot soup because maybe that would, like,
No.
readjust your body temperature somehow. I don't know.
Oh, no, we lived down
Like,
south, so we were always sweaty and hot,
right, right. Yeah,
but
but
we
I
were
know,
always
like,
hungry.
if you're hot and sweaty, you actually should take, like, a hot shower, and then when you get out
Oh,
of the shower, the
well,
difference will then make you feel a lot cooler once you get out of it. So
sure.
there's I don't know, I was
I need
thinking
to go back and tell 1970s mom this.
right. Sounds like you need a hot shower maybe after
Yeah, I'll probably do that
we're done
later.
recording this.
What'd you watch this past week?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up one
Okay.
documentary series that I
Ooh,
watched last week that I enjoyed. So it was on Amazon Prime.
okay.
It was called Glitter and Greed. It was the
Huh.
docuseries about Lisa Frank. So if you all
Huh.
remember, Lisa Frank was the
Yeah.
artist in the early 90s, made all of the girly school supplies, really
Yeah.
bright colored neon unicorns, like it looked like a unicorn threw up all over your
Yeah.
folder or binder. It was just all these
Right.
loved it. I actually have a Lisa Frank unicorn that I cross-stitched a few years ago, so I'm a big fan.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so this docuseries was just about what an awful company it was. It
Yeah.
was run by, like, her and her husband. She
Yep.
left kind of stepped away for a while she was raising kids, and her
Uh-huh.
husband was running it, and he was just the absolute like, imagine the worst boss ever, biggest nightmare
Right.
monster of a boss, and then eventually, after he got out of the company. She went on and she really kind of screwed over some people that were trying to collaborate with her.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it was really interesting, and then, Michael, you actually let me know about a podcast
Yep.
episode that focused on Lisa Frank, and I let you
Mhm.
know, I listened to it yesterday, or most of it, like
Okay.
the section about Lisa Frank, but, yeah, the podcast was called Dollop?
The dollop, yeah.
Yeah, what's the premise of that? It's like a guy and a
Is
can you explain what it is, or
the dollop is a great podcast, been around for years. It's 2 comedians. One is Gareth Reynolds, he's a stand-up, currently he tours all the time.
Okay,
And David, he's a comedic writer. He's written for Conan and other shows like that over the years. But what happens is David does all this research, creates this whole narrative story for the podcast. It's a historical podcast. They talk about one thing in history, people, events, whatever.
okay.
This particular episode I sent you, he did all of this research about what a nightmare of a person she was. But the whole concept of the episode is it's a history podcast where Gareth comes in and just listens to the story. He has no idea what the topic is going to be, and he reacts in real time to the whole story.
Right, okay, yeah, so
So,
this episode, it was from actually January of this year, it's a little bit of an older episode.
yeah.
Yeah, so basically one of the one that researched the topic is telling the other guy all about it, and he just hearing his reactions in real time, and it was really funny. It was
Oh, good.
hysterical. The way
Great.
he was reacting to and just the comments he was making about the whole theme is like a toxic workplace
Yep.
theme. Yeah, so no, I had fun with that.
Oh,
So
that's
thanks for the
good.
recommendation.
You're very welcome.
What about you? Anything you want have you been watching any comfort movies in your sickness this week?
So, I mean, this thing has been going on for the last few days or so,
Yeah.
and I have not been able to stay awake to watch anything. But
Oh, okay, right.
a handful of days ago, I watched a Netflix movie called Rebel Ridge.
Okay, hadn't heard of that one.
Critics have loved this. It's kind of like a revenge type movie. It happens, I believe, takes place in Louisiana.
Okay.
My review was corruption, cops, cash, and one cat. It was a good movie.
One
I get 4
cat?
stars.
Okay.
One cat. Yeah, it came
Alright.
out in 2024. It's a pretty good thriller action movie.
Okay.
Not bad.
Now I'm just wondering how the cat fits into all this.
Well, you have to watch to
I
find
might have
out.
to watch, yeah, okay. Alright, well, Michael, since you're not feeling well,
Yeah.
and you need to go rest, let's go ahead and just move on here.
Okay.
As you said, a great interview with Ed. It was really fun
Mhm.
getting to know him. I'm gonna just call out a few things that stood out to me during the interview. So, first thing, he talks about how for credit unions, having fewer resources or, fewer resources to hire a huge staff,
Uh-huh.
which they might look at as a negative thing, can actually be a benefit in terms of credit unions he's worked with and using his product. So I thought that was interesting. Second thing really details how AI can make member service more personal, not less
Mhm.
personal. So that was
Yep.
good. And finally, he explains why he has a very significant British accent despite having grown up in the southern United States. Bet
It's
you're
very
wondering how that
interesting.
works. Yeah,
It's kind of a trip,
it really
listening to
is.
him.
Yeah.
You'll love the story. Listen up.
Yes. We have all that coming up next.
Hey, listeners, this episode is excitedly sponsored by our friends at Bud Financial. Trusted by credit unions and core banking providers, Bud Financial is an expert in transaction intelligence. Bud Financial's plug-and-play personalization platform improves member financial health, boosts cross-sell, and has been shown to grow deposits by an average of over $6,000 per member. That's incredible. These people at Bud Financial are super nice, very fun. I really enjoy them. Find out more about Bud Financial at thisisbud.com. That's thisisbud.com. Bud Financial.
Joining us in the virtual studio today is Edward, or Ed, Maslaveckas, CEO and co-founder at data intelligence fintech Bud Financial. Hey, Ed, welcome to Shared Accounts.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Ed, do you like Edward, Ed, Eddie? What do you
Ed
like?
works. I have such a long last name that I think it's just like keeping my first name as short as possible is kind of for the best.
Makes
Smart.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally get it. Okay, Ed. So Start us off here. Let's talk a little bit about your company. On the homepage of Bud Financial, you call Bud the language model for personalized banking. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Sure. So we didn't always talk about this language model thing too much until more recently, because now with the advent of all these large language models from OpenAI and others, people kind of understand what that means. And so in terms of the banking space, we began building this language model that essentially was trained to understand what our banking transactions were and what they mean to customers. And so taking that data and then teaching a machine to comprehend, okay, first of all, what is a gas station?
Hmm.
What is a supermarket? Like, what does that mean to a person? Is that disposable or undisposable income? If that expenditure is of a certain amount, that might mean something different. If it's a $2 transaction, it might mean that they went and got a candy bar. If it's a $60 transaction, they probably got some gas. And so there's this real nuance that exists in our transaction data that is really important for machines or models to be able to understand. Because if you think about the digital picture of who we are as customers, we're really a sort of picture or a tapestry of thousands and thousands of transactions kind of all pieced together
Okay.
that can tell a story of who we are as a financial person or what our financial life looks like. So that's
Okay.
kind of what we began building in 2017, and we've developed that more and more, and that's kind of the backbone piece of AI that informs our entire platform about who you are.
So let's get into kind of the heavy duty topic of why we have you on here, which is about AI.
Mhm.
And despite AI being kind of a new concept for a lot of people, you guys at Bud Financial, you've been doing it for about a half decade now,
Yeah.
and you've seen attitudes from within the financial services industry towards AI kind of evolve. So how has that impacted your business? How AI is evolving?
To be honest, early days, it was pretty tough, right? We were
Yeah.
building this thing, and there was a lot of talk about open banking when we were in the UK. We came to the US it's about 2 years ago now.
Hmm.
People kind of didn't really want to hear too much about AI in the financial services space. It seemed risky and scary,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Right.
it was sort of prior to a bit of a platform shift. People in banks didn't really have access to the data in the same way. We didn't have the cloud infrastructure as proliferated as it is today. The modern banking cores weren't as predominant. And so
Yeah.
it was certainly a struggle to kind of really help people understand the value of these products and services and why they should be using things like this. But obviously, attitudes have changed. Everyone's gone from digital transformations to AI transformations. And
Hmm.
so I think that coupled with coming to the US, which has a very dynamic, competitive banking market, has really changed for us. This has been quite nice, but like I say, it's been the best part of 10 years to get to where we are today, and
Yeah.
kind of nice proof now.
Yeah, it's been an evolution for sure. With now, I think credit unions all are, from our perspective, using it, talking about it, and know that it's kind of an imperative. So it's interesting to see it evolve. Yeah, so let's get to kind of more of the, the credit union angle, which is obviously our audience here on the podcast. So Bud obviously works closely with credit unions.
Yeah.
I was wondering what is your message to credit unions that are maybe at different stages in their digital transformation journey? For example, if they're early on or if they even haven't started yet, is it too late to get started on a digital transformation journey? Do you feel like they've missed the opportunity?
I think it's a really exciting time for credit unions specifically. And I'll tell you why. We worked with a number of different size banks. Our first ever customer was HSBC in the UK,
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
and we still work with them today. However, like with the larger banks, and we do work with a bunch of larger banks as well as credit unions, but in the larger banking space, they, have these huge teams, and they have kind of every single function under the sun. Your data analyst team in one bank I'm aware of has kind of thousands of data analysts.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
the whole promise of AI really, like in the second wave that's kind of coming, which I can talk about later on, is really like the promise of a lot of the work that's required to run a bank from a data and a digital and automated perspective can be
Hmm.
done by AI systems rather than hundreds of people. And
yeah.
so in the credit union space, I think it's very much a 0 to 1 opportunity. Like, okay, a lot of the organizations we speak to, we're talking to them about using their data to analyze their customers in real time and then make recommendations as to maybe some financial assistance to give them, or maybe a relevant financial product to push in front of them. Today, in larger banks, you maybe have teams of people doing this, but the reality and the promise of what some of the AI systems that we're building and the other people have is
Hmm.
that you can introduce these systems and perform these tasks, allow these machines to perform those entire functions. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in the space where, again, if you're speaking to a larger bank, they're saying, okay, well, maybe I can get a third more out of my people by using a tool, which is
Yeah.
great.
Right.
But it's not as compelling as going, hey, we don't even do this today. And now we can kind of turn on this product and it will perform this whole entire function for us. And so I think that's where we've found credit unions to be like amazing customers and great partners, where we're able to talk about an ability that they couldn't do before and now they can do today, and without having to increase headcount. And I think that's a really unique promise in this space.
So you're talking these broad strokes
Mhm.
about AI, and I want to drill down a bit and kind of ask you a two-part question here. Let's talk about how AI enables real-time personalization for credit union members. And then also, in your big grand view, how does AI benefit credit unions and members?
Yeah, certainly talk about members as well, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like if we talk about personalization, in my opinion, I don't really see it done very well anywhere in the banking market.
Interesting.
We all get these cold emails from maybe banks or credit unions that we've been members of or customers for 10 plus years. And they say, hey, look, I've got this credit card or I've got this loan product that we think would be great for you. And you're thinking, look, if you were to look at my bank account, which you have access to, you would realize that product is not relevant to me whatsoever. And, we get all this stuff through a mail. I'm sure our mailboxes are kind of stuffed full of all these promotions, and it's just not relevant. And in reality, if a bank actually was able to say, look, I understand you, I understand your financial position, and there are actually some things that you could do with us that would improve your financial life in these ways. And because we have access to your data, we can actually show you the information projected out into the future of how, let's say, if you were to move to this credit card or if you were to take a specific loan out to do home improvement, how that might improve your financial life in some way. And I think actually as members, we would all welcome that. Okay, that's actually an interesting piece of information. I might not decide to take out that product today, but hey, that's a new piece of information. I haven't thought about that. I hadn't done that deep analysis on my own finances because who has the time? So I think from a very simple way that just isn't done today. And there are a number of reasons why that's not done, and comes down to kind of technologies and various different things. But I think that is a benefit that is clear from a revenue perspective from credit union, but also clear as a way for a member to improve their financial life. We are finding incredible pieces of information about customers. We found one member with one of our organizations that, and I won't name who it was with, but that had spent $6,000 on fees and unapproved overdrafts and various different things just because of how they were managing their finances.
Wow.
And I think this person just really wasn't aware of that. And it's just finding these pieces of information that just, it's not benefiting anyone. And it's just doing analysis on one group. And there was a bunch of other people that had similar situations, but this person really stood out. And it was just like, we could intervene with that person today and really help them.
I want to point out something that you were getting to that a lot of people we've talked about AI have not. In the use of AI, you were talking about AI helps to go, well, they don't need to know about that. And it made me realize, yeah, all I want is to be heard as a credit union member. And AI seems to be able to help with that, understand who I am and what I'm dealing with.
Absolutely. And I think it's also not to just say that what it means is all these channels become these digital touch points with credit unions become like just digital and unpersonalized, personalized from a data perspective. But I think one of the reasons why so many members love their credit unions is because of the personal touch that exists in the relationship. But what's missed sometimes is like that kind of real financial analysis. And so what we're also doing is actually helping organizations where they come into a branch or they're having an in-person conversation. We're helping the bank advisor to really find kind of key pieces of information very quickly so they can have a more informed conversation as well. So it's not just personalization through digital, it's personalization in person as well. I think that's a really cool experience. We're seeing a lot of organizations reinvest in branch. Some of the kind of larger FIs have divested from branch, and that's a real opportunity to get into branch, but then drive that as a center for growth for both individual member and for credit union. And we've seen some great numbers. We did one trial where we actually saw an increase in personalized cross-sell by about 80%.
Wow.
Which was a crazy stat. But if you think about it, rather than just having a conversation, if I'm able to say, by the way, you're applicable to this savings product we have, and click of a button, found that out, it's clear to see what the outcome is for both parties.
And just so you know, I've been nodding my head like loudly while you've been talking there.
I think
I
I could hear
totally
it.
agree with it.
I agree. A lot of the credit union members want that personalized touch. But I was thinking about as you were talking, I personally just wanted to open like a high yield savings account. And I just did it purely with an online bank because I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to do it. And I don't want to
Yeah.
hear from anyone. I just want to do it myself. So everyone has different needs. And yeah, I agree. I think that's great that you can use the AI, which sounds like it's more impersonal, to then actually be more personal with those credit union members. So
Yeah.
just wanted to dig a little bit deeper with credit unions, and what they kind of pride themselves on a lot of times is helping different underserved groups,
Hmm.
going into banking deserts, and groups that might be more unbanked, underbanked, in some kind of financial distress. I wanted to ask, how can AI help credit unions identify some of those more underserved member groups in their existing field of membership that they may not be serving already?
So it goes kind of almost back to this sort of show me, you know me type situation, which is one of the things we've built, which is a product we call Drive, which is a AI system, which is basically a data analyst. And so typically what you would do is say like, okay, go and do an analysis on all of my customers or customers in a certain region, or ask someone to perform a task. Sometimes these data analyst jobs aren't performed by the actual credit unions themselves, they're performed by third parties. And so that takes like maybe weeks or months to perform. They create these kind of customer segments, that are maybe in the hundreds of people. And then you kind of go out and like generally speak to those customers and members and have a broad conversation, or you kind of get an email campaign or something like that. First of all, it can perform those data analyst tasks within seconds. So you can
Uh-huh.
say, show me all of my members that fall into a certain income bracket and are taking a lot of cash out and not really like using card or using the bank very much. So like we don't see much data on them. We just see kind of cash in,
Right.
cash out. And then you don't need a data analyst to do that anymore. You can,
Right.
through simple language, ask the platform, hey, find me a segment of members that looks like this. It'll pull it together, make a list of those individuals. It maybe will find some unique data inputs. Maybe they are with certain employers. Maybe they spend at certain places. Maybe there's a pattern within that customer base that means maybe an intelligent way to target and speak to these members. And so that really like then can drive whether you want to do then a digital campaign, or you actually want to go and just give these people a call because they're on a list, or
Yeah.
you want to try and book a meeting with these people. That can then really help to drive and create that conversation. And so again, on the 0 to 1 thing that we're talking before, because we're able
Yeah.
to process that data and then we're able to do that analyst stuff within seconds, and then you can do it through natural language conversation, it
Mhm.
becomes very simple for anyone to actually go out and do that. So you could have someone in a branch sat there and finding a certain segment of customers that are underserved. And so that's something that we've seen a lot of success in and is quite exciting.
I love the connections that AI is capable of making. It's fascinating to me. And I do want to ask about investment
Yeah.
in this kind of technology. Do you think it's ever a good idea to build these type of capabilities in-house for credit unions? From either a regulatory point of view or just tech investment or even just resources and time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of time and it's a lot of resources. And I think that's where there's a real advantage in the credit union space, is that most of the credit unions we speak to are saying, look, we aren't going to build all this ourselves. Come in and let's just get this thing done and get it stood up as quickly as possible. We can get this done in, weeks, right? And so
Yep.
if you were going to build this up yourself, it's cost us a hell of a lot of money to build. I wouldn't even like
Mhm.
to talk about how much this cost us to build. It's taken us, like I say, the best part of 10 years to build this entire system. And then we're obviously always updating the platform. Hopefully by next year, we think we'll have a few hundred credit union customers on the platform. So again, any requests, anything that they need, either is
Mhm.
in pipeline or is already built, and there's just a huge cost saving there, right? We're not charging 100% of our development cost to one organization. It's split between hundreds of organizations. So it's a very simple math equation. And luckily with credit unions, they don't tend to do this wild thing that some of the larger banks do, which is like, let's build everything ourselves and then nothing gets done. So I think that question is answered pretty well in the market, in the credit union space. And I think that's why they actually have an opportunity to really leapfrog some organizations that are saying, hey, we need to do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to lock everything down. It feels very opportunistic right now.
Good point.
So for the credit unions that are going to be using this AI powered personalization and these
Mhm.
tools that you've been talking about, what would you say are some of the top ways they should be measuring the success of implementing that AI powered personalization? What are the key success metrics that they should go by, or can you give any examples of that?
One of the things that we can do, because we can monitor the actual data within the account and like how
Mhm.
the individual's spending, and this is sort of broad strokes, we can see when we create an intervention, we can mark within that individual customer,
Hmm.
member, whoever it might be, when the intervention was, whether it was an email that was created. We can segment the customers, then push the email to a third-party email system. We can then see from them engaging with that interaction, then if behavior changed, if they took out a new product, if they moved money in a different way, what that was. And we can see most of that through the transaction data, which is through various different ways we can see what happened. And so based on whatever the intervention was, we can actually map out and see the journey that the individual took over kind of a period of weeks or months. And so depending on what the push is, whether it was take out a new product, whether it was you need to spend less, whether it was, by the way, we found that, you've got 2 gym memberships and you're paying for Spotify and Apple Music,
Mm.
Mhm.
all these type of things, and we can see if those interventions were taking place. So it's really down to whatever intervention the organization decides to do, we can track it. So, some success metrics might be about revenue growth. They might be
Yeah.
about actually just better financial health. Fin health is a huge thing for us. I mentioned something we have begin rolling out the end of this year and then a lot next year is just this weekly wrap summary. So
Hmm.
rather than giving everyone these kind of endless financial management tools in their applications, just giving them like a weekly update. And that seems to really help people because it's not too much information. It's not annoying all the time. We typically understand our spending on a daily basis. But if you start to build up a weekly or monthly summary and just push it to someone, that's super helpful too. So that's showing some great metrics.
God, I would love to see that, just for me personally.
I know I've been seeing ads for a way to like have another like a third party go through all your subscriptions and get rid of the ones you're not using. I was like, maybe you can hook us up with this, get us an app because I think we both need it for monitoring our own
It's
spending.
It is confronting slightly, but it's useful. It's always a bit of a push and pull. And we've had a lot of
Mhm.
organizations saying, well, I don't know if we want to do this. It's maybe a bit confronting. People might not like it, but inevitably it's always helpful.
Yeah,
Whether
reality
you want to
check.
see what you did last week or not.
Yeah.
Well, people should be aware of that because that's how you get in trouble if you just want to be in denial about your spending, I guess.
Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. So you mentioned one thing that you're in the process of rolling out by the end of this year. Wanted to ask, what is there anything else you can share about things that your research and development teams are working on right now, and any other developments around the corner for Bud Financial?
Yeah, this is where the AI gets pretty heady, right? The stuff I'm talking about, which is kind of like the first wave of AI and personalization, is customer insight and intelligence. It's not to be kind of dismissed. It's an important first step to take, but there's kind of like this 4-step journey, which is kind of this path towards what we're calling kind of agentic banking, which
Hmm.
is where financial agentic models can perform tasks on our behalf. And so that is, to give a business example, is like a broad capability that is able to perform a task for either an organization or for an individual. So
Yeah.
in the organizational example, again, I talked about the personalization thing. So the whole find these customers, maybe push them an experience that'll help them reduce unnecessary spending, as we talked about, and
Uh-huh.
then monitor the impact of that. Like that's a multi-step process that us as an individual using the Drive platform could do. But when we start to talk with these agentic models, we could just say, hey, improve the fin health of my entire membership base. And
Yeah.
then understand that it can then push relevant services or messages to customers and then continually optimize that experience over time and just perform multi-step actions on my behalf and kind of
Huh.
almost like run a function. And that's where agentic models become pretty huge for the actual running of credit unions.
Yeah.
And then the other side is these models can actually perform tasks for individuals. So you could say, hey, improve my financial health. And
Yeah.
then it might say, okay, well, I've identified a couple of different things. It looks like what I could do is I could move money out of your account when you get paid, move it
Hmm.
into a higher interest yielding account. And then as and when I see that your rent, your mortgage, your credit card is coming out, I will move money back to cover that based on the balance that I understand.
Amazing.
And then I will optimize that. And even agentic models will be able to onboard us to new financial products, with our permission. And so take away this thing that exists really is we could all be better with our finances, but where we get stuck is just in performing the administrative tasks. And because it's boring, there's a bunch of paperwork, there's a bunch of stuff to do.
Yeah.
These models can go ahead and do all that stuff again, like canceling our subscriptions and doing all these things for us. And so that becomes, I think, a huge change to one of the biggest blockers to financial health, which is inertia. And so I think that's where this is going. That's where we're doing some research. We're developing some of these agentic models ourselves and then using some third-party AI systems to kind of perform some of the tasks, and then
Mhm.
the whole understanding of a customer's financial life and predicting finances and then finding what the right financial action to take. That's all of our models. That's deep in research. I couldn't tell you when that's going to be ready. I'm hoping
Okay.
that will be kind of Q2 next year, but it's deep tech. So we'll see when it's ready. It's ready.
Sometimes we have guests on, and especially talking about AI, and the things you were just rolling through, I was thinking of my grandparents who have
Hmm.
long since passed and how confused they would be by hearing all of this. Like, wait, what? What happened to this world?
Yes.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think you have some amazing things kind of on the horizon. And very quickly, last couple of questions here. I do want to ask very quickly about the challenges you see that credit unions are facing to ensure data quality. That's a
Mhm.
big issue for credit unions for effective AI segmentation models.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we've seen is that there have been organizations that have kind of proliferated, especially in the credit union space, that have promised this world of personalization and promised a bunch of outcomes and insights to their customers and their members as technology vendors. But the reality is that what we've seen is that early wave that happened in the teens
Uh-huh.
of all these insights, these organizations didn't spend the time building kind of the foundational systems that really granularly and
Mhm.
accurately could classify and categorize every transaction. So if
Right.
you have an accuracy rate of, in the 80s into the low 90s, your error rate across an entire member is pretty big because it's a
Yeah.
compounding effect. And so therefore you actually think you know something about the member, but you actually know very little because error rate's too big. And
Yeah.
so there's been this sort of promise that you could kind of perform some of these analytics or insight tasks for clients, but it just wasn't possible before because the granularity and the accuracy of these models, they weren't up to scratch. So a lot of our customers come to us and say, yeah, look, I'm working with this other company, or we tried to do this, but the insights weren't relevant. It didn't work. And the reality is everyone tried to kind of got over their skis and tried to get to the end solution before solving the
Mm.
granular task. And
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that's the thing that we spent a lot of time doing. And that's why these things are able to actually work now. Even though we've been talking about these type of experiences for the best part of 10 years, I think today is when, because of the advancements in the core technologies, these things can actually start to happen.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, Ed. So, one final question before we move on to part two of our interview here. What are some best practices in your mind for balancing the AI driven personalization that we've been talking about throughout this interview, along with member privacy and
Mhm.
regulatory compliance? Kind of those two things I mean, it's a big issue with credit unions with
Yes.
looking for things like fraud, but then making sure you're giving them a personalized experience at the same time. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, in fact, it talks about some of the older members and that kind of thing. And what we found is actually that by helping to monitor accounts, we can detect sort of anomalous patterns of behaviors that individuals weren't aware of. Things can be happening in our accounts that we just they aren't aware of. And there's a lot of
Right.
fraud and there's a lot of people that are being taken advantage of, or people's parents have signed up to something online they're not even aware of, and they're
Oh,
people
yeah.
taking a whole bunch of money out of their accounts. So I think that's been very helpful. Of course, like at the core of everything we do is around sort of data security and privacy. So as much as we talk about like deep personalization, as an organization at Bud, we can never access the data. We can't get access to any of the underlying information. It's kind of all done by the models. It's all anonymized in real time, and only the client can really see what's actually happening in their account. If you are then to the example I gave, where you can go into branch, what happens is like when you go into branch, you give that person permission to view the insights on the account.
Right.
Either beforehand, you can do it by email, you can do it by a call beforehand. And so by managing the consent in that way, we minimize the risk and we lock everything down. So I think that's important. I think having kind of like broad best practice principles around kind of data management is a kind of an organization wide thing. I think we've never had any security issues. We've always over indexed on security because kind of you have this honeypot problem if you're processing data. First of all, just like understanding what's happening with your clients provides an additional security layer which didn't exist and doesn't exist today.
Yeah,
Very good.
absolutely. All right, Ed. So let's go ahead and move on to part two. And this is the fun part of the interview because it is all
Yeah.
about you.
Awesome.
Are you ready?
It's one of my top 5 favorite subjects.
Awesome. Perfect. You're in the right place. Okay. So, first of all, can you tell us where did you grow up? What is your hometown?
Yeah, moved around a lot when I was younger. So I
Mhm.
was actually born just outside London. And then when I was 3, I moved to Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, not European Georgia, till I was 13, and
Okay.
sort of grew up out in Georgia and
Okay.
playing in the creek and going, swimming. And it was
Okay.
a great childhood. Yeah, I loved it. And then,
Can I ask you, what do you recall how you sounded? Because I'm talked a little bit, because I grew up in the South, and you
yes.
obviously don't sound like any of my relatives or anybody from Arkansas. But can you still do a Southern accent?
I can't. My sister is incredible and can do the accents, but I think it's something about intentionally almost losing the accent when I moved back to the UK because kids just were trying to get you all the time to say words and do. So you just try
Sure.
to sound like them as much as possible. And if you're actually like English or British, you can hear that my accent's a bit of a mix. But if you're
Okay.
American, you just hear the British side. So
Right. Okay.
Right.
so then I moved back to the north of England and grew up there, and then moved back over to the States
Right.
about a
Okay.
year ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Feels like coming home. Despite the
yeah.
accent, it feels like coming home. I'm really excited to be back here.
Nice.
I love
Nice.
the complex
Right.
story that your life is. It's really enjoyable.
Certainly complex.
Yeah. Okay. Do you ever go back to Georgia to visit? Do you still have family there?
My brother was living down there until last year, but he just moved up to New Jersey to take a job, actually. So we
Okay.
U-hauled up through the country with all of
Uh-huh.
his stuff. That
Wow.
was fun. But so I haven't been back since I was beginning of this year, even. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fintechs down there and stuff like that.
Oh,
I
sure.
was in North Carolina recently, so that was as close as I got. But we used to go up there when we were kids for holidays. But
Great.
yeah. But I get to travel all around the US at the moment. Just like I say, come back from Seattle,
Yeah.
see a customer over there. That was great. Yeah. One more trip this year and then we'll be done.
Well,
Right.
so speaking of traveling, you've been incredibly busy since starting Bud Financial in, was it 2015?
Yes, 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
One, are you able to go on vacation?
Good question. I try. I do try to get away in the summer and then the first week of January it's quite kind of quiet. So
Yeah.
I try to do that.
Okay.
I kind of worked through my vacation this year, which was a bit of a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, but it's an exciting time right now. So as long as things are exciting and they're positive and they're moving forward, you don't feel the burnout in the same way. But when times are tough, that's when you need the vacations.
Absolutely. So when you do go on vacation, where do you like to go?
Well, I try to go every year. My siblings like to go to Ibiza, a bit of a party town there. That's more their vibe, but I go along with them. I love to go skiing. I haven't been for a couple of years, as you can
Okay.
imagine. I'm trying to maybe go this year, go to Canada or something. I recently visited Mexico. Well, I say recently. That was my last vacation in last January, so that's about a year ago. That was
Okay.
fun. Last year or this year, I did 180 days in hotels, and so
Oh, God.
Oh,
honestly,
wow.
so
Huh.
vacation to me is just being in my apartment and just around and just kind of like having a normal life. Getting on planes, any more planes than necessary is I try to avoid that.
Great.
That is fascinating. That's, you're traveling a lot for work when
Yeah.
being home feels like a vacation, but
It makes the tax returns kind of complicated in the US because you got to kind of account for which state you were in at any one given
that's
time.
true, right? Yeah. By the way, you must be a pro at packing, like
Oh
packing
yeah.
quickly, right? Okay. I'm sure you
That
have
is the
some
one thing I am good at.
tips
Oh,
there.
we
Yeah.
should have you back on, a summer vacation travel guide with Ed.
Yeah, I have a very meticulous way. I'm actually a very disorganized person, but when I pack, it's like check everything 3 times,
I
and
love it.
there's bags for bags, and
I
pack
love this
light.
idea.
Don't check anything. Don't book the middle
Yeah.
seat. All sorts of
Don't,
stuff.
yeah. I'm sure got some good airline perks as well.
Yeah, just about.
Okay, so Ed, real quick, going back to your childhood version of you, can you remember what was the first ever album or cassette or CD that you remember buying?
I remember this very well because my grandma was visiting. We were in Georgia,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and this is ridiculous. It was a Dr. Dre album,
Oh,
and I
okay.
remember because it was a parental advisory album, and
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
my parents, very religious, they would have never bought it for me, but I kind of convinced my grandma to buy it for me, and it was actually a
Ooh.
single, when they like a
Okay.
CD single, right? So when they used to do singles, it was a Dr. Dre single.
Do you remember what it was?
God, I can see
Or
the
are you allowed to say it on our show?
probably not, but I can see the cover now, but I can, and it was an Eminem single I got as well, but it was
Oh,
All
Dr. Dre and
right.
Eminem.
oh my God.
Yeah.
You know what? That parental advisory sticker, the black and white
Yeah.
sticker, talk about something that backfired, on the people who didn't want kids to listen to things that were
Yeah,
explicit.
Because they
yeah.
would want to
Because
listen to
everybody saw
more,
the sticker and
obviously.
like,
Yeah,
oh
they
man,
told,
I
yeah.
want that album.
we would
Yeah.
have a cool thing to have was like a parental advisory poster. You know, that was like you'd get a parental advisory poster in your room, and that was kind of like a hip thing to do.
Amazing.
I
Oh
love
God,
that.
that's
Yeah,
awesome. This is the last question for you. What was the last movie you watched?
Oh my goodness.
On an airplane, at
Oh
home,
goodness.
in a
What did I
hotel?
watch recently? I watched like some random war thing. That is a difficult question.
Oh, I apologize for the
No. I
difficulty
just
level
can't.
here.
I can't remember the name of it.
must not have been a very memorable war.
It wasn't the best. Sometimes you just need some sort of World War II
Yeah.
top up, but it wasn't a particularly good film, to be honest.
Okay.
What else have I
Okay.
watched recently?
Yeah, what else?
Or a show, like a series.
I've just watched. I kind of binged. There's a thing on Netflix called Black Dove, which is
Oh
Oh,
like
the
yeah.
a
new,
Black
yeah.
Dog.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
binged that within like 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, that was quite
They're
something.
coming back with the new season. They've already been signed
Oh,
on
really?
for
Yeah.
more.
No, I enjoyed it. Some people said they didn't like the writing, and maybe I was distracted by Keira Knightley. I don't know. The writing
She's
was,
great.
it seems great. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Ed Maslaveckas, CEO and co-founder at Bud Financial, this has been a pleasure, but unfortunately we have to say goodbye. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We really had a lot of fun.
I also had a lot of fun. So thank you so much for having me, and
Ed,
hopefully
thank you.
come back.
Absolutely.
Please, we have
We'd
a
love to have you
summer
back.
episode vacationing thing to do with you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it'll force me to take vacation, maybe.
There
Yeah,
you
there you
go.
go.
That's your
Awesome.
yeah, it's a requirement.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Thanks so much, Ed. And for all of our listeners, please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. You know how this works. And if you want to rate us, we'd love your feedback. And for those of you with questions or comments, feel free to email me over at nchillingarian@cutimes.com, or you can email Michael at mogden@cutimes.com.
Also, a big thank you to our show's sponsor this month, Bud Financial. Hey, we've been talking about them. Check them out at thisisbud.com. That is thisisbud.com. Thank you so much, Bud Financial. Also, thank you to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. Join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.